Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Nexus 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if banished Naruto became the emperor with Hinata, Hanabi, and Uchiha princess in his harem part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Autumn had settled into the lands of the elemental nations, and yellow and red leaves were falling down within the Senju compounds, having dried out of life. And the only one to watch as they were falling was one of the few occupants of the estate and officially the last of Senju clan alive, Tsunade Senju, former 5th Hokage, or a former active Hokage as she was also known now, who sat outside, a sad and solemn look upon her face, a teacup at her side, and a photo in her hand, a photo of better times, one of the last happy times for her. On that photo was Tsunade with her apprentice Shizune, alongside with Hinata Hyuga and her little sister Hanabi and cousin Neji, flanked by his teammate Tenten and close to Konohamaru, Iruka, Kurenai and Anko, all cheering and congratulating the one and only number 1 unpredictable shinobi of Konoha, Naruto Uzumaki. It was Naruto's 14th birthday, and it was the first one that he had ever celebrated, all because Tsunade had thrown this party in his honor, deciding that the boy deserved to feel happy and loved on the day he was born. Slug Princess didn't expect this, but soon after she had become a Hokage, she grew closer and closer to the blonde boy, taking a role of a mother and caring for Naruto, as well as protecting him from this village. And it was her own initiative to let him have his birthday with the people that he considered his friends. All of the genins and their senseis were invited, as well as friends of Naruto, but only very few had really shown up, with even Naruto's teammates, Sakura and Sasuke, not even paying him a visit, along with Kakashi Hatake, his sensei. Jiraiya didn't come as well, having left without even a word to Naruto or Tsunade, but she knew what his deal was. But those that did show up, Hinata, Neji, Hanabi, Konohamaru, Anko, Kurenai and Shizune. They all came on their own volition, and they celebrated with Naruto his birthday, with the shy Hyuga heiress confessing her feelings for the boy, after some inspiration from Kurenai and Shizune. The look on the two's faces was priceless, and the memory of it brought a smile upon Tsunade's face. Hanabi was also very interested in the blonde, and while she was but a year younger than Hinata, clearly had good feelings for him as well. As it turned out, she adored him for protecting her sister and herself once after she was bullied. Neji was indebted to Naruto for showing him a way to freedom away from fate, while Tenten had grown to be a close friend to Naruto following him saving Neji from his burden of hatred. Anko and Kurenai, while initially undecided about the boy, too had grown close to him in spare time, thinking of him as little brother, one that they like in their own way, but very much cared for. Iruka and Konohamaru both saw Naruto as nothing short of their brother, along with Shizune. It was truly a great day for Naruto, who had even let down his mask of happiness and showed his tormented, broken and vulnerable self, as he cried out of happiness for this genuine act of kindness. The village has done so many wrong things to this boy, and such act of kindness, the first ever birthday that he did not fear and wasn't forced to hide, it was something that Naruto had not expected to ever receive as a gift. Tsunade and everyone comforted him, stating that things will be getting better from that point on. Sadly, they were wrong, as things had gone to worse quickly, as Naruto, having been found guilty of charges of treason, attempted murder and more by Konoha Council, elders and even Daimyo himself, has been banished from Hai no Kuni, stripped of all his honors, ranks, property and more. And all of that simply because he had done his duty and brought back a defector of the leaf, Sasuke Uchiha, unconscious, beaten and subdued, while Naruto was barely even alive, but that didn't matter to Council and Daimyo, who overruled Tsunade, Hyuga clan and some other minor clans that stood by Naruto. No, they wanted him gone at all costs, and merely were merciful enough as to let him live. On the same day as he was released from the hospital, Naruto had left the leaf, taking only what little Tsunade could give him to get by in the world: money, food, cloths, some scrolls. He was quickly followed by those few who had become his true real friends, Hinata, Hanabi, Neji, Tenten and Konohamaru, who had chosen to stand by their true friend instead of following the village that honors traitors instead of loyal shinobi. Uruka, Kurenai and Anko were also compelled to follow them, but had chosen to remain in Konoha, bound by loyalty to it, but now with a great sadness and dull pain in hearts. That was 6 years ago, and no word had come about them in all this time, no rumor or anything, as if they had disappeared and left a great sadness for Tsunade and those few that cherished them. And in these 6 years, many things have changed and some even returned from the shadows of the past. Fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, the yellow flash of the leaf, and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, had reemerged after 14 years since their supposed death, alongside their daughter Narumi, a twin sister of Naruto and Kushina's mini-clone, and son Menma, both twins of Naruto and true holders of Kyuubi's power. Turns out, their deaths had been carefully orchestrated and the family had went on into hiding, as Minato and Kushina, along with their children holding halves of Kyuubi's power, were prime targets for the man that had unleashed Kyuubi upon Konoha in the first place, and it was clear he wasn't going to rest until he had gotten his hands upon it. Feeling threatened and in danger, Minato made a hard choice with his wife: go into hiding with their children, to train them in controlling the power of Kyuubi, but as to lied everyone that they were gone, they left Naruto in Konoha, who held the soul of Kyuubi and very little of its true power. The few that knew of this, Sarutobi Hiruzen, elders, council of Konoha, Jiraiya and some others, they swore never to reveal this, even to Tsunade. The day when they all had returned, Konoha celebrated like never before, while Tsunade was furious, livid, and completely mad with anger. Now she understood why Naruto was so poorly cared. Why did council dispose of him, holder of Kyuubi? He was merely a tool, a decoy that had played its part and was disposed of, no longer of any use to Konoha. And his so-called parents were completely fine with that, having long made peace with sacrificing their child for their own good, even if they appeared to be saddened that Naruto was no longer in Konoha, but not even remotely remorseful. That day, Hokage's office had seen more damage done to it than in all shinobi wars and even by Kyuubi, as Tsunade practically tore that place to smithereens, before she tossed her resignation as Hokage, Sannin and shinobi to the council, effectively leaving the shinobi life behind and becoming a civilian. Jiraiya, Kushina and Minato tried to stop her, but their efforts were null, as Tsunade had set her mind and wouldn't budge, and Minato had accepted her resignation, along with the office of Hokage. And ever since that day, Tsunade watched from the sidelines as Konoha celebrated and praised the hero children of Namikaze and Uzumaki, along with forgetting of Naruto Uzumaki completely. Konoha's youth gradually became Chunins and Jonins, with Sasuke Uchiha being now married to Minato's daughter Narumi, who was instantly charmed by this brooding emo, along with Sakura Haruno in the attempt of restoring clan Uchiha. Menma was soon also married to Ino Yamanaka and a granddaughter of Councillor Kaharu. Tsunade loathed how Konoha, while at its strongest, had seemingly forsaken morality, honor and dignity. Lands of Wave, Suna, Spring and others have turned their back at first from Konoha after hearing of Naruto, but after being pressured by Konoha and practically forced into the alliances, they were again with them, though now nothing more but puppet states. Inside Konoha, things seemed normal and prosperous, but such wasn't the case for everyone. Clan Hyuga, having been one of the few powerful supporters of Naruto Uzumaki, had found themselves on the receiving end of combined scorn of Konoha, for the support of sacrificial pawn and a demon. And the situation within the clan wasn't exactly a stable one either, as the clan had split in between the main house faction, under the leadership of Hyuga elders and their puppet clan heir, and Hiyashi's faction, with practically all of branch members and some of the more progressive Hyuga main branch members included. So far, there haven't been any hostilities, but Hyuga elders, seeing how Hiyashi had lost both of his daughters to demon, were now pushing him aside from his position in favor of a far more traditional Hyuga head. Unbeknownst to most was the fact of Hiyashi letting both of his daughters and nephew go free on their own accord, saving them the fate of being subjugated to caged bird curse mark for the rest of their life. While Tsunade had entered a retirement as a shinobi, Shizune had continued her work in hospital as a medic, and while she was easily the best out there, because of her status as Tsunade's apprentice, she wouldn't be given either promotions or more responsibilities, shot down in favor of more loyal shinobi. Anko Mitarashi was also stuck in her position of Tokubetsu Jonin in IT department, but also being under a constant probation since the return of Minato, same reasons as with Shizune and others. Kurenai has had enough of teaching genins and decided to step down as active jonin and joined the academy as an instructor, alongside Iruka Yumino, proving to be one of the best and only capable teachers out there, who made sure to train and teach her students what really was needed of future shinobi and not just blind loyalty to Konoha and reverence of Minato. Needless to say, she and Iruka weren't very popular these days among shinobi either. However, recently it has become clear that Kurenai had shifted her ideas about Naruto and his friends more into line of most Konoha. Akatsuki had continued to pose a serious threat for some time, but something had happened to them, as they were now gone, with the last report of their activity coming in just 7 months ago, where it was said that leader of Akatsuki was found dead. Somebody had been hunting Akatsuki down and destroying them, one by one, but by whom? Tsunade had hoped that it was Naruto doing his part in the grand scheme of the world, but there were no clear evidences. The only thing that was clear is that Akatsuki, once one of the most threatening forces in the world, was now gone, and Konoha was at its strongest with the most beloved and powerful Hokage in their history. And Tsunade was one of the few people that still clung to all that Konoha had forgotten, and loathed how ruthless, aggressive and dishonorable this place has become. Tsunade took a sip of her tea, when she heard her apprentice come out of the house and speak to her. Lady Tsunade, there is a man outside. He asks for an audience with you and insists upon it. Shizune said to Tsunade, who simply looked at her with a bored expression and spoke up. Send him off and tell him that I am not in the mood. I don't care if he is even a Hokage or whatever. Tsunade had grown quite spiteful of visits over the years, considering that most of them were those of Kushina, her children and other people that had betrayed Naruto and what True Leaf had stood for. I told him to go away, as you've asked me before, milady, but, Shizune took out of her pocket something and showed it to Tsunade. He had this with him. Shizune handed over the item to Tsunade, which immediately made her eyes go wide and mouth agape. In Tsunade's open palm laid her former necklace, one that she had gifted to Naruto for winning the bet. She knew that there was no other like it and that the only one belonged to Naruto, who had left with it the village. And now, after over 6 years, it once again was in the hands of Tsunade. Her form shook a little, as she instantly stood up and practically stormed the compounds, without even a word to Shizune. She rushed towards the entrance into the estate, desperation and hope both present in her eyes and posture. Could it be him? Could her surrogate son have returned? Or has someone found it upon his dead body and decided to give her the news? Hundreds of suggestions and questions raced through Tsunade's mind, and she stormed right towards the entrance, where she found a young man, dressed in a pseudo-Anbu black wear, with a black coat over it all. He had long black hair, straight and coming down to the beginning of his neck, with 2 bangs on other sides. Tsunade immediately froze in her place, as she recognized the man before her. Itachi, Uchiha, she muttered in shock, with the said man bowing before her. You are alive. What in the world are you doing here, in Konoha? A pleasure to see you as well, Lady Tsunade. Itachi said to her in a polite way. I understand that you have many questions, and I intend to answer them all, but it would be best if you had let inside. I had to drop my henge before you, and I do not wish to be seen, if I can help it. Tsunade stiffened up quite a bit, looking at the man that had slaughtered his own clan, but she knew the true reasons for it, so she let him in, and soon enough, with Shizune joining them, they sat in the guest room. Thank you for receiving me, Lady Tsunade, Shizune-san. I understand that you have questions as to what I am doing here and how did I come across First Hokage's necklace. Start with the latter, Itachi, and if I find out that you had a hand in Naruto's death, Tsunade was practically ready to destroy this man, but Itachi stopped her as he spoke up. You need not to worry, Lady Tsunade. The necklace came to me from its owner himself, Naruto, as he has given it to me, knowing that this will be an adequate argument for you to hear me out, as well as a good opportunity to give you this. Itachi pulled out of his pocket a scroll and gave it to Tsunade. As for how is your godson, Lady Tsunade, I would say that he's doing very well for himself, much better than he would in this part of the world, one would say. This is a letter from him, which I have been tasked by him to deliver to you. And before you ask, best if you read this letter. Tsunade and Shizune instantly went to the scroll, unsealing it and opening it, reading it together. For good 10 minutes as Tsunade and Shizune had read this letter, the more and more their amazement, relief and shock grew, as the contents of that letter had revealed to them just where their beloved blonde and his company were, what they had been up to and why he has decided to reach out them now. Tsunade was in a state of shock as she discovered where her surrogate son was and who he was now, as well as just how much he has changed. It was clear to hear that he was no longer the same little blonde, but a completely different person. The letter clearly didn't contain all the information and everything that Naruto had wanted to give to Tsunade, but even from this piece of information, it was clear that he has changed, drastically, and forever. As Shizune and Tsunade had read through and through this letter, they looked up at Itachi, now understanding as to why he was tasked by Naruto of all people to deliver this message. Former Sannin spoke up to him. So, the man that has been reported dead for 6 years was out in the western continent all this time. Tsunade chuckled at this one. There were reports that you and your partner Kisame had met your end at the hands of Iwa's Anbu, with a dozen shinobi falling dead before you and your partner were killed. Those Anbu were present at the moment I have decided to shift my allegiances, since I needed to make it look believable. Itachi simply stated mysteriously. My time with the Akatsuki was up and I could see that any longer would only be to my detriment, and considering how Konoha has dealt with my clan and how Sasuke has turned out, I decided to follow along with your godson to the west, where he and others decided to start anew, completely. And, in my personal opinion, he has done extremely well for himself in the west, or Eriador, as it is known to them, actually. I'll say, Tsunade said in a bit of shocked voice, reeling with all the new information she and Shizune had learned. All this time, all these years, I had thought that he was somewhere out there, alive. I knew in my heart of hearts, but I didn't expect that he would end up out there in the west, the place that even Rakudo Sennin hadn't dared to venture to. They say that place is a completely different world to elemental nations, and that people there do not even hold chakra there or that monsters populate it. Many of stories are exaggerated to the point of absurdity, while many others hold only bits of truth. But a complete truth, the truth of that place is that Eriador is at least 7 times the size of this continent, and that it is populated by many, many peoples, and not just humans. That piqued the interest of Tsunade and Shizune when Itachi spoke of it. I once thought that world was still a very much unexplored place, but when I and others had gotten there, I understood just how right I truly was. Eriador is the land that is as alien and foreign from elemental nations as it was once hostile and violent. I am sure that you remember that the age of Sengoku had ended not even a century ago and how devastating it was. Yes, it had ravaged lands and countries in its wake, hundreds of clans battling each other just to see who is stronger. Tsunade had stated, and this Eriador is no different. Was, until a year ago that is. Itachi simply said to Tsunade, who nodded to him. Only the scale was much, much greater and numbers were not in hundreds, but coming close to hundreds of thousands at times, with whole nations, kingdoms, even races battling each other, for over 700 years, after the First Empire broke apart. When we first arrived there, it seemed like better would be to simply return, but Naruto, he truly is the most unpredictable man on the face of the world. Instead of fleeing, he stayed and did something that nobody had done before him. He united that land, founding what is now known as Second Numenor Empire there, with himself as its emperor and lord protector of races populating it. But, with the size of that continent and possible numbers of shinobi, how in the world could Naruto do all of it? Shizune simply couldn't understand it, with Itachi smiling a little to her. Shizune-san, did I say that there were shinobi out there? Itachi said to her, with Shizune looking shocked, along with Tsunade. In that land, the only shinobi that you could find there, are that had long fled there from our continent, are those that now serve Emperor as his secret, shadow defenders. There are no samurai either, not like ours. Things are completely and utterly different out in Eriador, and as for how Naruto has managed to do it all, he merely did what he always did best: rally the people, inspire and give them hope for better, show them that there is a better way of life. He casted aside such things as nationality, race, kingdom or nation, introducing a simple, yet powerful and mighty concept, a rally call for all, one Eriador. One Numenor, one nation for all, equal and just. I can assure, it had taken a great deal of persuasion, trials and tribulations, but with each battle fought and won, king, count, tyrant and more slain and surrendered, with each new ally, those words became the echoing soul of new empire. An empire, to which the emperor now wishes to welcome you, Lady Tsunade and Shizune-san, as well as a few others, those that have given him hope for the better tomorrow. Tsunade and Shizune looked shocked at Itachi, who merely smiled to them. He is well aware of what has been going on in this part of the world, and he offers you too, as well as Anko Mitarashi, Uruka Yumino, Hiyashi Hyuga, along with his clansmen a place within the empire, as well as completing whatever conditions you may have for the living in there. As you may understand, being the sovereign of an empire as vast as his, he is capable of quite much. Tsunade and Shizune exchanged the looks, thinking about it all for a few minutes and trying to decide whether they would be willing to venture out into this unknown or not. They both knew that here in Konoha, there wasn't much that held them here, as they were now, as well as those three outcasts in this glorious Konoha, one that had sacrificed its morals and honor for power and wealth. A place that honored traitors and cowards over heroes, truly, the Konoha that Tsunade and Shizune once knew is dead and out there in Eriador. Maybe. Tell me, what are Naruto's overall objectives with this continent and Konoha, Itachi? Tsunade asked of him, with Itachi simply answering to her. I am not completely aware of his intentions, not in details, but from what I know, he wants to establish peaceful and trading relations with several of countries out here, along with establishing a trading company for intercontinental trade. He wishes to establish a connection between West and East, but he does not want war with either of nations, nor will he permit for anything that poses a threat to Numenor Empire to exist. Itachi stated with strength, with Tsunade raising an eyebrow at this one. Such was the fate of Akatsuki, once he had found out from me of their plans and objectives. His Imperial Majesty has tasked me and a few others to dispose of the Akatsuki before they were able to make their move. Given the fact that his spy network is most impressive, my intimate knowledge with how Akatsuki operate, their members and the level of skill and power of me and my companions, such task was relatively easy to accomplish, but crucial nonetheless. Though pain did prove to be quite the challenge, he was still defeated nonetheless. So then, the Akatsuki are really gone, huh? And the one responsible for it was my favorite little blonde. Tsunade smiled at this one. If Minato and Kushina ever find out that the sacrifice they had left here now holds so much power as to simply destroy a group of S-rank nuke nins, and what of Konoha in particular, and does he know of his parents and siblings? He is well aware of them all, not that he is too pleased with this development and how he has been sacrificed in favor of his sister and brother. By the sound of it, Itachi wasn't too thrilled with this development either. Hi no Kuni he considers to be not as worthy of attention as some others, though he does intend to open a trading office in here as well, while Konoha, in his opinion, is too small of a place to give a thought to. Considering that he rules an empire that is at least 8 times the size of Hi no Kuni and has to deal with threats from both north and southeast to his empire, he simply finds no time to spare a thought to a place whose size is comparable to that of a small city in his empire. However, in my personal opinion, he won't be making any alliances and friends in here, considering the reports about Konoha's recent aggressive and expansionistic tendencies. Reports about Konoha's political and militaristic subjugations of Wind, Spring, Wave and Tea are quite unsettling to say the least. Even though Numenor and elemental nations are separated by more than 370 miles of ocean, Naruto, as a leader of empire, wouldn't like to suddenly find an aggressive and powerful force, bent on expansion through conquest and subjugation. He has enough concerns keeping him awake at nights as it is. I'll bet. Running a single village, a shinobi one at that, and running an empire the size of which is bigger than an entire continent, he must be drowning in paperwork alone. Tsunade let out a dry chuckle, with Itachi also chuckling to this one. Fine. Let's say that I agree, along with Shizune here and others. How are you going to get us out of Konoha and into your empire unnoticed? Even more, how will we even get out of Konoha, as the matter of a fact? Do not worry about that detail, Lady Tsunade. As I have said earlier, Eriador is worlds different from elemental nations. And out there, people have found quite the ways of transportation, one of which would put Yondaimi's Hiraishin to the test and shame even. Now, what would be your answer? My clones have already reported to me that the others are at an agreement, which leaves only you out. Tsunade and Shizune look surprised at this one, but they've figured that Itachi would be one to get things done in quick and orderly fashion. Lady Tsunade, I think that we should go. There isn't much left for us to do here, and even council and civilians themselves have shown to us all that we aren't exactly welcome anymore here. Maybe, with Naruto in the west, Shizune thought that she would need to convince her teacher, but Tsunade was already there with her. Count me in, Uchiha. Tsunade agreed. Now, how are we getting out of here? Later. That evening. What do you mean vanished? Minato Namikaze, 4th Hokage and the greatest hero of Konoha, was utterly shocked and furious, as he received the report from his Anbu about the sudden disappearance of Tsunade, Shizune, Anko, Iruka, Hiashi and the majority of Hyuga clan out of Konoha. It was easily the most unbelievable thing that could have happened, since there were absolutely no evidences, leads or anything for that matter to indicate that they had left the village. Aside from the lack of their belongings in their respective houses, raging members of main Hyuga branch and their colleagues, nothing indicated that those people had left Konoha in any way. It was as if they all had just gathered in one place, according to several witnesses, and then they were gone, completely and without any trace. Minato, being an expert in Fuinjutsu and one of the only users of Hiraishin, thought that there was some form of space-time ninjutsu involved, but there were no ninjutsu that could teleport people of such quantity over any distance and not alert the barrier corp of Konoha, and here. Council is not going to like this, but still, considering that all of them have been outcasts in Konoha, for their views on state of business in Konoha and outside, maybe it was even for the best. Less of those that opposed Minato's views on Konoha and its expansion, and he didn't even have to weed out the possible political opposition. Clan Hyuga had suffered a serious blow, being now only at its 12th of power, but this was also to Minato's favor, as it would seriously limit otherwise powerful and influential clan, and even allow him to gain a much greater control over it. Although, he still couldn't think of what could have been the reason for those particular people to disappear, aside from the fact that they were outcasts and all of them were still openly talking and remembering Naruto, the son that he and Kushina had sacrificed for the benefit of Konoha and their family. Maybe it was the latter, but perhaps he was overthinking it too much, as it was clear the boy was dead and other defectors with him as well gone. He and Kushina were saddened at the fact that they couldn't ever see him ever again, but, from what they had learned from council and clan heads, he wasn't much of a sight to behold, nor was he even worthy of his name or name of his mother. Overall, his loss wasn't as significant as one would think, and it was, essentially, his destiny, designed by him and Kushina, to be sacrificed in favor of his siblings with power of Kyuubi. So, in that regard, Naruto has done his duty and was no longer needed, and with his disappearance, this meant an unneeded loose end cut. Minato drew his breath, as he thought about this whole situation again and spoke up to his Anbu. Triple the security around Konoha, alert all of our outposts and checkpoints, as well as alert all our teams out there. Send out search teams outside and check their houses again, find anything on where they could have gone out. Anbu Black Ops nodded and disappeared instantly, with Minato letting out a sigh. Well, color me impressed. Jiraiya snorted, drawing the attention of Minato. Every single person that just wouldn't let go of Naruto and be objecting to the policy of Konoha is gone. You sure you hadn't a hand in it, kid? You know as well as I do that I had nothing to do with this, sensei, but still, to be able to get out of our village like that, simply vanish in such large quantity from Senju compounds, is something that not even Hiraishin wouldn't be able to accomplish. Have you found anything there? Minato asked of him, with Jiraiya shaking his head at this one. Nope, not a single clue or anything. All I know is that before their disappearance, Hiashi received a visitor, but nobody knows who that was and there was no luck in finding him either. All that we have is that everyone who wasn't on board with you and the rest of Konoha are gone, poof and nothing. Jiraiya simply stated to Minato. And as for Akatsuki, then I can only confirm what everyone is thinking. They are gone, dead and killed by someone who had hunted them down. Some of my sources pointed out that some men and women were searching for them, but nothing too surprising here, considering that pretty much everyone hated them for one reason or another. If anything, it would seem that threats to both Narumi and Menma are gone, as well as other Jinchuriki. And it doesn't seem to be the work of any other hidden villages. I'll keep an eye out if something comes up, but other than that, I would say that Konoha is in the best position ever. Yes, it seems that way. Minato agreed. Now all that we need to do is keep the hold over other lands and get rid of Orochimaru for good. By the way, how are things with Kiri? Any progress? Not much has changed there, kid, but it does seem like rebels are going to win for sure. Jiraiya stated to Minato, who nodded to him. Perhaps, now's the best time to expand the will of fire upon the Mizu no Kuni. Maybe, thought it would be best to first consult Daimyo and inform him of this window of opportunity. Plus give him time to select a proper candidate for the position of Mizu Daimyo. Minato chuckled a little, standing up and looking out at Konoha from the window. Looks like the prophecy is sure to come true soon enough. Eternal peace under Konoha's rule, with Menma's and Narumi's children to live in there and rule it. Yeah, kid, it sure is going to come sooner than later. Well, I'll be off now. Time to see what nice material I can get in Hot Springs. And with that, Jiraiya had disappeared from the office, leaving Minato to his own thoughts. First, second and third Hokage, I hope that you are watching over me and Konoha right now. Soon enough, the will of fire will become dominant in the elemental nations, and once all that had defied it have embraced it, nothing will stop the shinobi from truly taking over the control and command of a unified land. A single nation under a single cage, without any daimyo to pull the strings, a true peace. Minato smiled to this thought, the thought of a world where shinobi were truly in power, with will of fire connecting them all together. It will be a glorious sight to behold once it came to fruition. 4 years later. The Sea Rider. Southern shores of Second Numenor Empire. 4 years have passed since the day when all of Minato's opposition has vanished from Konoha and elemental nations, and these 4 years have seen the rise in power of Konoha, but also a sudden unification of old enemies of theirs. With Hai no Kuni's intervention in Kiri's civil war and into internal affairs of Mizu, a new, pro-Konoha government, Mizukage and Daimyo were placed there, ensuring a new ally and subjugation of otherwise unstable region. Another step towards the grand peace has been made, but after that, the other nations have recognized the threat that Hi no Kuni and Konoha now posed. This has prompted Iwa and Kumo to unite again in the alliance, with many of the smaller nations coming together with them, with Stone, Rain and several others openly integrating themselves into the bigger nations for protection. With Wind and Water being effectively puppets of fire, daimyos of Earth and Lightning understood the threat and allied themselves, along with Odo no Kuni and Odogakure, still led by Orochimaru, who was now a lesser evil and threat, when opposed to aggressive and powerful Konoha and its fourth Hokage. It was clear to everyone that a new great shinobi war wasn't far away, and it could risk becoming the biggest one yet, with tens of thousands dying this time, possibly even hundreds of thousands. And everyone was preparing for it, but nobody was ready to throw the first punch. And as if the stroke of fate itself, a great famine had hit the elemental nations, sweeping through the countries and leaving entire nations without food and starving, lasting for 2 years. Especially badly were hit the countries of Northern Alliance, the union between Odo, Kumo and Iwa, with famine, plagues and illnesses taking the lives of over 1/6 of populations in each country, including invaluable shinobi forces. This would have been a perfect time for Konoha to strike, but they also had succumbed to its effects, with great casualties among populace and shinobi. Suno was especially badly hit, with 1/4 of its population dying and Land of Wind practically becoming desolate and filled with corpses of dead. Kiri and Mizu were hit lesser than most, but because of Konoha confiscating the resources and food from there, casualties were still extremely high from food shortages and lack of resources. Konoha may have not declared war, but it took many resources from nations that needed it to sustain itself, leading it to suffer less than others combined. This had only intensified the hatred for Konoha in all of elemental nations, as Hi no Kuni now was starting to become a major global threat to peace. Somewhere in the middle of a great famine, out of nowhere, across all of elemental nations, a new trading company emerged, which had quickly monopolized trading business through the sea and across nations. The Phoenix Trading Company, a company with hundreds of ships loaded with goods, resources and more from none other than the elusive, mysterious and even mythical Western continent, and an empire that now dominated there, the Second Numenor Empire. The revelation, that out in the West, lies a nation so powerful and mighty, that it has called itself an empire, has shook the elemental nations to the core. A completely new, unknown and yet extremely powerful player in global scheme of things, it has completely changed the balance of the world. From what traders and officials of Phoenix Company told daimyos and Cage, the empire had no interest in invading and attacking their lands, instead opting to opening trading, economic and diplomatic relations, with nations welcome to send their envoys and diplomats to establish official relations with empire. Daimyo of Fire had initially shrugged it all off, thinking of it being not worthy of his attentions. However, the situation changed when reports came in, that lands of Iron, Sound, Lightning had sent their official diplomats, envoys and even managed to establish embassies in the capital of the empire, Numenor City. The news of this, along with apparent rumors that that emperor has been sending humanitarian help to the nations of Northern Alliance, helping them recover from the Great Famine, have infuriated Daimyo and he demanded an immediate envoy and diplomatic mission to Empire from Konoha, with demands for opening a direct trade, a consulate and abolishment of trade with all of Northern Alliance, as well as the demand for humanitarian help from Empire as well. For this mission, Daimyo decided to send Minato himself, along with Konoha's elders and some of his officials. Minato, Konoha's elders, his wife, son and daughter with their spouses, along with Sasuke, Sakura, Jiraiya, Asuma Sarutobi and Kurenai Uehi, Kakashi Hatake, Might Guy, Shikamaru Nara, Kiba Inuzuka, Rock Lee, and Daimyo's officials, accompanied by a squad of Anbu Black Ops, were now on board of Sea Rider, heading towards the Numenor city and were due to arrive within a week, having departed almost 2 weeks ago already. As Minato and Kushina stood on the deck, they looked out towards the shore, noticing how amidst the green fields, forests and more, was a completely black, desolate and empty place. And out there in the middle, ruins of what seemed to be a small city or big fortress stood still, black and smoking. A distinct smell of fire, ashes, blood and death was sensed even here, unnerving the couple, when the captain came up and spoke to them. "Ah, you sense it too." Captain, a tall and strong black-haired man with a short beard, came close to the edge and looked out to the destroyed keep. 5 years have passed, and that place still reeks of death and fire. Not even years after that slaughter did the smell and remains of House Latrua disappear in the wind. Fucking traitorous bastards, every single one of them. Hope they rot in hell after what they did. You sound like you've been there before, Captain. Minato noted out, with Captain nodding his head. Care to tell us what had happened out there? Yes, I've been there, commanding the 17th Marksman Brigade, under command of the Emperor. My brigade has fought at his side throughout all of battles in the entirety of the Great War, from first battle at Pinewood Ridge to the Battle of Sirens Keep, which you see out there, and what remains of it. Captain said to them, surprising the Hokage and his wife, along with other passengers that were close to them on the deck. Once one of the oldest and most powerful citadels in all of Numenor, now a reminder of Emperor's justice and vengeance, as well as the example to all those that dare break their vows and laws of men. You have fought alongside Emperor. What is this guy like, and is he a shinobi? And just what did he do that place and what happened there? Without much of tact, Menma instantly asked of Captain. From the looks of it, he had pulled out some crazy jutsu upon the people out there to make it look like hell without flames. Don't know jack about those jutsu of yours and don't care for 'em, and as for those shinobi business, the Emperor is not an assassin or spy. What he is, however, is a man of greatness, forged in fire and blood of great war, driven and determined with a purpose and idea of uniting the land you see out there into one single entity. Captain said with respect and pride. I remember the day when I first laid eyes upon him, an apprentice to then Lord and ruler of Numenor, Uther Pendragon. None of us thought much of him, but soon enough, that blonde lad had led us in battle against Meretian Kingdom to the east, and it was probably then when all of us saw not just another one noble knight and paladin, but someone who could unite this land into one. One Eriador, one Numenor, one nation for all, equal and just. Those were his words, and they resonated with all our hearts and souls, and it wasn't long, till he began to prove that he was indeed making it a reality. Once an apprentice turned into a paladin, and soon into a lord, and then a unifier and selected emperor, first one since the fall of Ravenheart dynasty 700 years ago. Adopted into Pendragon as a son of Uther, he made good on his promise to bring peace and prosperity to this land, to unite its fighting kingdoms, races and defeat the threats that had terrorized the populace. And that he did, through the might of sword, strength of the light, magic, inspiration, diplomacy and personal example. In 5 years, he has done all of that, and people of Numenor proclaimed him their emperor, chosen by all races as their lord protector and sovereign. Captain said with greatest pride and smile. You ask of me what that man is, lad. The emperor is the man that has made a hopeless dream into the reality, shattering old hatreds and grudges in favor of unity, common good and prosperity of people. In his eyes, no race is greater or lesser before others, and he made into reality. He is the man for whom I would gladly lay down my life and be proud to stand by his side again. The words of Captain were listened carefully and with intentions by others. Nobody in the High no Kuni had known much about the emperor of this land and what kind of a person he really was. However, from the way this man spoke, with respect, honor and pride present in his voice, it was clear as day that the emperor was someone who held utmost loyalty of his people. A powerful warrior and paladin, whatever that meant, as well as a military and political genius, to have been able to unite this enormous land under his rule, if Konoha were to secure not just a trading treaty, but an alliance with him, get his armies and fleets for themselves, then elemental nations would fall without any chance before Minato and Konoha. How old would this emperor actually be, if you do not mind telling us? Koharu asked of him. From what we heard, he is pretty young, younger than our daimyo and Hokage. And what had actually happened there? The emperor is around 25 years old by now, and even though he is young, he is a bloody great man. Captain looked towards the ruins of a keep again. And as for Siren's Keep, House of Latrua was one of the few remaining independent houses to join the empire, and they had sent a message that they are willing to accept an envoy and emperor's official diplomat to sign the Treaty of Unity. When the envoy had arrived, with them was one of emperor's most trusted persons. His first consort and wife, a kind, gentle and good woman. A dream for any man, Latrua had pulled out a feast for the envoy and consort, after which they had slaughtered them, and in act of spite, arrogance and pride, they sent the corpses back to emperor, with a reply on his offer. Emperor, at the time, was in Northwest, dealing with Ironborn raiders, but when he received the bodies and learned what Latrua had done to his diplomats and his consort, never, anyone had ever seen him so furious and mad. A fury that eclipsed even the anger of dragons. Captain recalled the moment. Within a fortnight, he marched to the Siren-S keep, bringing with him the full might and armies of the empire, over 300,000 men, women, warriors, paladins, knights, mages, even dragons. All of that might against some 30,000 peasant soldiers and 4,000 knights. The emperor offered the peasants to lay down their arms and knights to surrender, which they all did, but to Latrua he offered no surrender or capitulation. They had violated sacred laws of hospitality, honor, and had killed his wife and consort. He gave us all a simple, yet clear order: destroy them. And that we did. Wait, you mean that your emperor commands literal dragons? Like those flying giant green snakes and everything? You've got to be shitting us here, old man. Kiba exclaimed, with Captain and his crew glaring at him. I mean, come on, dragons are just fantasy stories, nothing more. Plus, magic, whatever knights and paladins, you obviously just making it up. After all, shinobi and samurai win battles and wars, not some fantastic beasts and imaginary heroes. Lad, let me ask you a question here. Am I from your continent, and are in there? Captain asked of him, with Kiba shaking his head. Right, we ain't there, and here, in Eriador, things a hell of a different from your east. You folks may have your shinobi and samurai all over the place, with that chakra and whatever, but our people here. We also got whatever that chakra, but we also have magic, power of light, elemental powers, power of nature and primordial, or arcane power. Aside from humans, we've got here also high and night elves, orcs and dwarves, among other minor races, and we most certainly have dragons, beings of pure magical power and might that could destroy countries in their wake. And our empress, may light protect her, is a bloody dragon, the black dragon queen of black flight, Semiramis. And before you ask, dragons can turn into beings of other races to blend in, and she, along with her black flight, is one of the reasons why our emperor has united this land, as she has joined him in his quest, as this was her own desire to see the land united too. These powers, all these races and even dragons, we knew that things could be different here, but to think that are more races here, and there is different kinds of chakra. Quote. Minato's mind raced at what he had just heard. If the emperor were to allow Kushina and Jiraiya access, we could easily obtain the needed information and knowledge to use this magic, as he speaks of, and it does seem like that people here even somehow mastered senjutsu, if that power of nature is anything to go by. And in return to this, maybe we could offer him our knowledge of chakra and perhaps a political marriage, since Captain has mentioned that Emperor has multiple consorts. A bloodline member, perhaps someone from Nara clan or Yamanaka clan, to sway Emperor in our favor for good and promote Konoha's interests. Yes, that definitely would work. So, these lands hold a great variety of sources of power and even dragons. All of this must belong to Konoha and put to use for it. Danzo already thought about his own plans. Once we reach the capital, Using Koto Amatsukami on the Emperor will be child's play and Konoha's positions shall be unrivaled. The resources of this land will also work for the betterment of Konoha, just like all those other villages and nations now do. And with the might of Numenor Empire and its vast resources, nothing will stop Konoha from rising above the petty and weak daimyos and claiming its rightful place as world's true empire. If he had an entire army of such powerful beings, he should have just let them do all the work. Had it been me, an Uchiha, I would have had united this land in no time, with such an army, worthy of true elite. Sasuke arrogantly stated, with Captain looking incredulous at him. If those dragons are as powerful as you say, then by using them, this emperor of yours should have long burned away those that dared opposing him. I certainly would have. You, an Uchiha? Captain asked of him, with Sasuke arrogantly nodding to him. There are Uchihas in the east as well. I thought they had long killed each other, considering what some of my Uchiha friends had told me about M. Wait, you mean that there are Uchihas here in the west? Minato asked, with Danzo and Sasuke picking this up. You must be joking. The only Uchiha that there is alive is Sasuke Uchiha, my son-in-law. Well, maybe he's the one alive out in the east, but here in Eriador, Clan Uchiha is one of the 3 all-out shinobi clans. They had arrived here some 200 years, being outcasts that broke away from those warmongers, and settled on this continent. They don't rule much of land, but they have a small city of Kyotai on the coast north of Numenor and a couple of villages under their rule. Captain stated, with Sasuke listening to it with clear interest. Nice folks those Uchihas, friendly and not irksome and prideful like this eastern variant of them, but damn if they aren't some of the bloody fiercest and strongest warriors I had seen in my life. A single Uchiha is worth a squad of good cavaliers, but an Uchiha with their Sharingan on, and a true Mangekyo as they call their strongest, no wonder that they had managed to hold of 4 bordering them kingdoms, until Emperor and Semiramis had convinced them to join in. Now, they are amongst the most loyal of Emperor's warriors and backbone of his Shadow Guard, and one of M is even a member of Imperial Royal Guard, 12 best of the best warriors in all of land and Emperor's personal bodyguards. An Uchiha clan out here, and ruling over a city and villages, they must be those forsaken traitors that had been exiled in Sengoku period. Sasuke recalled with arrogance. No matter. Those weaklings are no true Uchiha elite like I am, but even so, they may be useful. They must be reminded who is their true leader and whom they must serve. Sasuke already was picturing himself a loyal and obedient army of Sharingan users, with him in the lead, as he spoke up. Those Uchihas you speak of are but a filth and dirt, when compared to the true elite like me, man. They had been exiled so that they may not weaken my clan with their fickleness and misery. Uchihas out here in the west, and possibly with eternal Mangekyo Sharingan in great numbers, such power must belong in Konoha, not some backwater empire like that. Perhaps it is time for the stray dogs to return home. Danzo thought to himself, already making plans on using these new Uchihas for himself. You know, lad, I've seen M in battle, and I can tell that even one without a Sharingan, tear you a new one, and their head, Makoto Uchiha, is amongst the most powerful men in Eriador, known as Wraith of Numenor. Even Emperor himself hasn't been able to defeat him in a duel, and that man has defeated some of the strongest creatures and people I know of. Captain said with disdain to Sasuke, who only seemed to be getting more arrogant by the minute. And as for that keep, that was the only time Emperor had unleashed dragons in open battle, since before they only were protecting borders of their own nesting places in Numenor, but here, Semiramis herself led the attack and she along with 10 more dragons had burned to the ground that keep, with the entire house of nobles in there. After it was over, Emperor ordered to burn the land that belonged to those people, salted and drain the wells, rivers and lakes out there as well, with all the forest being cut down. This was as how he dealt with traitors and those that dared to betray his trust. Captain turned to the stunned public. The Emperor may wish and do only best for Numenor and all its people and races, but that doesn't mean he is weak or indecisive. betray his trust, hurt those that he cares for, or threaten the people of his land, and nothing will stop him from making those that dare to do it pay with their lives. Keep that in mind, Konoha people, since he has long heard of you and knows what and who you are to him. From the way this guy speaks, sounds to me like those dragons are pretty much like Biju, but only far more numerous and intelligent, and their strongest is the Empress. If they were capable of leveling that place uninhabitable in number just 11 dragons, and there are possibly more of them, then it is obvious that angering Emperor is the last thing to do. Shikamaru has made conclusions in his mind about it all. Still, a separate Uchiha clan out here, with their own lands and serving to Emperor, Sasuke will no doubt try to show off his authority to them, and Hokage might even try convincing them to return to Konoha, but I highly doubt that they'll want to go back to elemental nations at this point. After all, here they have like a small country of their own, and there, man, even though this is troublesome, come to think of it, the noble clans of Konoha aren't even half as revered and politically powerful as the noble clans in capital, makes you wonder of a few things. Uchiha clan of the West, and possibly with members holding Mangekyo Sharingan, I recall reading of exiles from Uchiha clan that disappeared, but now it seems they've been doing quite well for themselves here. With the Sasuke now the only Uchiha in Konoha, convincing even a portion of these Uchihas of West to come home to Konoha could prove to be another turning point in Konoha's path to victory. Minato was already seeing an opportunity of having more Uchihas in Konoha, fighting for the will of fire. You've said that Uchihas were one of the shinobi clans out there, what are the other two? Council Homura asked of Captain. Oh, the other two. Well, the second one is Uzumaki clan, who are situated on Isle of Kai, northwest of here and close to Kyotai. Kushina widened her eyes at this one, as did others. And the other one had arrived here just some 4 years or so, the Hyuga clan, situated in Numenor City directly. Those Uzumaki fellas are pretty hot-headed, but also real tough and sturdy, plus loyal to a fault, being out from the east, having fled it after they were betrayed by their allies and having settled close to Uchihas, and nowadays those two clans are pretty much inseparable. My dear wife Rinko is actually one of them and she works in Ministry of Trade and Exchange. They were actually among the first to join the Emperor in his cause, apparently recognizing him as one of their own or something. That's impossible. My clan, the Uzumaki clan, it was destroyed during the war. I saw how the island of Whirlpool burned from the ship I stood on. Kushina shouted out at Captain, who shrugs it off. Rinko did tell me that lots of her clan mates died during the attack on her original home, but about half of clan made it out here and settled in close to Uchihas. Captain simply states to Kushina and others. You can ask the head of Uzumaki clan and a wife to Makoto Uchiha, Kaoru Uzumaki about it all. She is also in Numenor, representing it there. Kushina stiffened up when she heard that name. Kaoru, my little sister. Kushina was in shock at hearing this name. Who knows, maybe. All I know is that Uzumaki and Uchiha clans were among the first to sign up and join the Emperor and I'm damn proud of having fought side by side with them lot. Captain said with respect towards them. And as for those Hyuga clan. The Uzumaki clan is out here, and the Hyuga clan too. Quote. Minato was in shock mentally. Those Hyugas, could they be the ones that had disappeared from Konoha 4 years ago? If so, would that mean that Emperor had a hand in their arrival here, but if so, what would he gain from them, and why and how would he be able to do it, being thousands of miles away from Konoha? I'll have to find out about it, but more importantly, if those really are the Uzumaki from elemental nations, then they would most certainly would like to go back their home, and with Konoha's protection, they wouldn't want to say no to this. Plus, they weren't here as long as Uchihas, so not much of roots have taken place here, and there ought to be those that remember Kushina as the heiress to clan, and she could effectively take control. And if we are lucky, the Uchihas will follow, since they are so close to each other as it seems. Emperor wouldn't have much saying in the internal matters of clan, so there is that. This is going to be a very fruitful embassy. The Hyuga clan is a clan of Konoha, and those must be the deserters and traitors that fled it years ago. Kaharu spat at the mention of them. The emperor will need to give those traitors back to Konoha, so that we may punish them, or else I might just throw you lot out in the ocean for sharks and nagas to feed upon. Captain was deadly serious, as he and his crewmates were all loyal to their sovereign, surprising Konoha delegates. The emperor isn T bound to you, Konoha people, and as sure as hell ain't obligated to do anything, and if I hear even a word of threat towards I am and his family, you can bet your asses will be out of my ship in no time. Trust me, I and my men here, we all served and fought alongside him, and we will fight and protect him even in peace. In confirmation to the captain's words, people rallied closer to him, standing near him and in clear readiness to execute his order to throw these people off their ship. Of course, we understand, and apologies for our rashness. We are just surprised that one of Konoha's clans would end up all the way in here. That is all. Minato had tried to defuse the situation, with Captain simply answering it. Don't know much, but rumor has it that those Hyuga clan weren't very much welcomed in your lands, so Emperor offered them and a few other people place in here. The council and Hokage were surprised to hear of it. From what I know, Clan Hyuga have been more or less integrating into police force of Numenor, but most of them some that are into trade, farming and diplomacy, with their heiress, Lady Hanabi Pendragon, being Emperor's consort and head of foreign affairs and diplomatic relations. Ah, if only Lady Hinata could vase seen her sister now, when the name of Hanabi came up, and then one of Hinata, everyone's eyes went wide and shocked, for it meant that they, and possibly Naruto could have survived here. Hanabi Hyuga is alive, and she's even a consort to Emperor. Wait, what was it about her sister Hinata just now? Did she like those other friends of the fox demon die out here, or did they make here all? Sakura asked of Captain, who glared at the Pinkett. You better watch your mouth, girlie, Captain simply said to her. The fox demon and his friends, as you call them, are nothing short of legends and heroes of our empire. Each and every one of them have made sure to bring order and stability upon this land, standing as Emperor's closest allies and friends, and all but one had lived through it all. Lady Hanabi Pendragon, Emperor's consort and diplomat, voice of peace and reason in matters of politics and one who had brought in night elves through negotiations and peaceful integration. She is Emperor's voice and nobles, elves, even orcs respect her wisdom and shrewd mind on things. Gabriel Windrunner, or as he called himself Konohamaru and whatever else, adopted brother to Emperor and his closest friend, Emperor's hand and one of two most trusted and powerful, after Emperor and Empress, people in Empire, his will-bearer and closest of advisors. He stood by Emperor's side through the entire war and is even a brother-in-law to him, for he is married to a younger sister of one Emperor's consorts. It is from his hands have I been gifted with this. Captain unsheathed his saber, gilded in gold and silver, made of steel of moon coloring. Honorary weapon, crafted in steelhorn, dwarven capital, with Emperor's own name upon it, congratulating me for my services. Neji Hyuga, Empire's finest master of hand-to-hand combat and founder of Gentle Storm School, a school of his personal style of combat, with which he had defeated in single combat 5 of best Kingsguards of Varichia's kingdom, known for their elite warriors, serves as Emperor's personal bodyguard. Lady Tenten Hyuga, wife to Neji Hyuga and Empress personal guard and mistress of 100 weapons, who single-handedly dealt a killing blow to a chieftain of Aben Axe Orcs, stands as Empress personal guard. And then, Captain let out a saddened sigh, as he looked out at the burned grounds. Then there was Lady Hinata Hyuga, gentle and kind lady, who believed in peace and unity even more than Emperor at times. She was a warrior, but she was able to stop wars with just words and gentle grace, and Latrua had spitted on it all, when they butchered her with such cruelty and savagery, that when her body was brought to the Emperor, the keep we stayed in had shook at the cries of rage and anguish. The only time when anyone had seen Emperor so defeated and weak was at that day. Lady Hinata was loved by all of us. Elves, dragons, dwarves, soldiers, peasants, nobles, you name it. But none loved her more than Emperor. For what Latrua had done to her, he made them pay, every single one of them. Captain again turned to the people around him and spoke up. Before ya all ask, everyone in here and there on continent have heard their tale and how they left the east, alongside the so-called fox demon you call him. So a word of advice. You try and insult them or the man they followed, be ready to pay with your lives for this. They are legends, heroes and have earned the love of this land and its people, and none more so than Naruto Uzumaki. Captain saw deep surprise upon the faces of Konoha shinobi and counselors at a mention of this name. I think I'm done talking. Time to check up on the maps. Wait. Just tell us, is our son, I mean Naruto, okay? Kushina asked of him, with Narumi and Menma, who didn't even consider their long-lost sibling for a brother, wondered why she even bothered. You speak so highly of his friends, but what of him? Him. Oh, he is well, I assure you, and he has played the most crucial role in all of this. Without him, there wouldn't be an emperor or the empire to begin with. Don't worry, sure when you get in capital, you'll get to see him and you'll learn what he has been up to. Captain simply stated in a mysterious manner, returning to his quarters, while everyone had their own thoughts about it all. Naruto is still alive, and it appears like he is Emperor's most trusted man, alongside Hiruzen's grandson, or however he calls himself. He may've left the shinobi world, but like Sensei likes to say, you can't take a shinobi out of a man. Minato simply thought as he was calculating what he would do. With Naruto and his friends so close to seats of power, it would be easy for them to convince the Emperor and Empress of what needs to be done for the good of Konoha. All I need to do is show Naruto that his family is ready to accept him, so I'll need to talk to him. He may be a little mad, but he is sure to listen and understand what is best for his family, him and everyone. And if he is close to Uzumaki and Uchiha's there, then all the more reason for him to get back to Konoha. My son, even though your services for Konoha were no longer in need, you still can bring what is best for Konoha out of this situation. Perhaps there was more to you than I originally thought, beyond of your initial destiny. Naruto, Kaoru, my clan, my family is still alive and is out here, in the west. Kushina thought to herself. All this time they were here, on foreign land and away from their true home. Don't worry, my son, sister, once I'm there, I'll beat that emperor to a pulp, but I will get you and our clan back home, Databane. So the Dobi is still alive and is close to that weakling of an emperor. Figures that losers will stick together. But all this talk about Uchiha is here in the west and the empress. She must be very powerful for a dragon, and to command my clan into battle. Perhaps if I show her the true power of an elite Uchiha, she'll see that her weak husband is worthless and I'll have myself not just a powerful matriarch of Uchiha clan, but a full empire to rule, and not be a husband to these two bitches, Sasuke thought to himself evilly. So, Naruto is actually an empire, and seems to have been contributing a lot to its creation. Looks like the lessons he has learned from me did get him far, though it is a shame that he had abandoned, apparently, shinobi way. Oh well, Kakashi thought to himself about Naruto, before he went to his book. That Gaki is still kicking, and is close to the imperial family. Oh ho, I think I just find my own new goldmine for my next book. If the rumors among men are true about the beauty of the consorts and empress, I'm sure he has missed me, and if I promise to patch things with Minato and Kushina, he'll do anything I ask for it, no doubt. Jiraiya already had a perverted smile upon his face and thoughts racing through his skull. Konohamaru, you've probably grown so much over these years, and to become an aide and right-hand man to Emperor. Your parents would be proud of you, but to change your name and your family name, did you hate us all so much that you would do all this? Foolish boy, it was all done for the betterment of Konoha, and you've turned your back to it all, even smirching yourself with this name Gabriel. I hope I get to see what you have become, Maru, and tell you how much you've dishonored yourself with all this. Asuma, with a mix of sadness, fury and anger, thought to himself, as he planned to teach his nephew a lesson of loyalty once he saw him. Hinata, I had hoped that we would again meet, so that I could embrace, but, I am sorry I wasn't there for you, my girl. And I hope that the Emperor had loved with all his heart, not like that idiot Naruto Uzumaki. Kurenai thought with sadness when she heard of her apprentice's death. Neji, Tenten, it shames me as your teammate that your fires of youth have left our youthful village, but, now that I know how high you've risen, I shall prove to you that I have not been falling back and that my flames of youth remain the strongest as always. You just wait when I prove it to you in a spar, with Guy Sensei at our side again. Rock Lee was already having his flames on in his eyes. So, Hinata is dead, well, there's hope that her sister will see a true alpha and slap Emperor away from me. Kiba, thinking with his nether regions over his head, quickly forgot of Hinata in hope of getting to himself her younger sister. So, Hokage's son has survived and is here as well. Apparently there is more to that brat than what we thought. Well, from his position, he and others will be able to aid Konoha through swaying the Emperor. Time to remind them of their place in this world. Elders thought to themselves, as the ship carried their procession towards the capital of Numenor Empire. 4 days later, Numenor City, a glorious and monumental site of a great and might city, surrounded thick white walls, large enough for 2 wagons to stand side by side and ride, with walls as high as some of the mountains, with towers reaching even higher. And they surrounded a giant city, brimming with white, gold, silver and more, with life brimming in there, heard even at ships still a couple of miles away. The size of Numenor City was astonishing, bigger than the capital of Hai no Kuni, possibly even larger than all of Konoha with its training grounds. All made of white stone, with gilded metals in it, and the roads into city seemed to be filled with travelers, civilians, travelers and more. Konoha delegation looked at it all with a mix of awe, shock and even envy. As the ship began to close onto harbor, Konoha delegation looked at 2 cliffs, walled up, and at the 2 fortresses, flanking the entrance in the harbor of the city. Manned, massive and standing proudly displaying the might of empire to all that wished to make an entrance here. The distance between the 2 was probably less than half a kilometer in sea, but they still seemed very close and overlooked the seemingly tiny ship as it passed into the harbor. The Twin Lions Fortresses. Captain called the fortresses to Konoha's delegation. The on the left is the North Lion Fortress, and on the right is the South Lion Fortress. Imposing, ain't they? Each has a garrison of a brigade worth of men, and is armed with 80 cannons on each, all loaded, primed and waiting for whatever poor sod decides to escape or force his entrance into the harbor. About 40 of those dwarven killing machines are looking at us right now. Why would someone build such massive structures, if there are no catapults? And what are those cannons you speak of? Kushina asked of Captain, who looked at her, as if he was told the stupidest thing ever. What? Are they some kind of better catapults or something better than those archaic things? Well, they ain't catapults, but something really better and more powerful. I just need to remind myself that you are just the tourists here, that's all. Captain looked up at the North Lion Fortress, seeing a special signal over the battlements for him and his men. Okay. Hard to starboard, boys. Greg, lead us to First Royal Pierce. Captain gave out orders. Looks like Emperor has decided to honor you, Konoha. Of course he would. He is to meet the most powerful and prestigious people in his life. Kaharu stated in a prideful manner, with Captain simply shaking his head at this one, as the ship was reaching the end of their destination. The First Royal Pierce resided the nearest to the Imperial Palace, a massive structure, a third citadel on the city, walled, with towers and a great massive castle standing proudly. The palace seemed as massive and imposing as it looked grandiose and great, being large enough to seemingly house all of Konoha inside with more than enough place for some additional guests. There apparently was a big garden close to it as well, as it overlooked the harbor, filled with trees, green and lush with flowers, a truly marvelous sight. As the ship was docking, Konoha's delegation saw that they were already being expected, as a group of men, dressed in steel plate armor from head to toe, armed with shields and spears, with a sword at their side. This seemed almost laughable to Shinobi, to see people dressed in so much steel, that they wouldn't be able to even move in it at all, much less run or fight. Sasuke even laughed openly at them and their attire, with Sakura, Kiba and Menma following the suit. In their mind, the only true warriors were Shinobi and only, so these people looked like barbarians to them and were nothing short of idiots, completely ignorant to the fact of complete cultural, philosophical and overall core differences between East and West. However, their attention was soon on someone else. Namely, three persons that stood behind the soldiers, who formed up into two lines and made a passage between them for the delegation. The first one was a young, beautiful woman, dressed in white and violet long, tight dress with the violet pattern on her skirts and waist. Her figurine was one that would leave men dazed for days, with impressive bust, shown through the cleavage of her dress, long beautiful neck, wide hips and beautiful face, adorned with a small silver tiara with sapphire adorning her forehead, complemented with long flowing black hair, with two bangs on each side, and pale Hyuga eyes. Next to her stood a tall, handsome man with brown short hair, blue eyes, strong masculine build, bearing resemblance to Asuma, though a distant one. His dress was one of a plated white and golden armor, made in a form of scales of a dragon, covering his shoulders, waist, arms and legs, with scale and chain mails in between the gaps. On his back rested a long great sword, with a golden hilt in form of a dragon's head. And next to him stood someone that ladies of Konoha instantly grew jealous with, adding her to the Hyuga standing near her. It was a young, very beautiful woman, with grace and unparalleled attractiveness. Dressed in leather and chainmail armor, with a tabard over her waist, she still drew in envious sights, as her face was without any defect, with unnaturally blue eyes, long, as if whiskers of a cat, brows, and long, pointy ears. She, as they all recalled from descriptions of Captain, was a high elf, and apparently a warrior, with two short swords on her hips and bow in her hand with arrows in a quiver. As Konoha's delegation disembarked and came close to the three, they bowed lightly to them, before a Hyuga girl spoke to them. Lord Hokage, ambassadors, honorable guests from Konoha, their imperial majesties welcome you to Numenor City and our empire. I am Hanabi Pendragon, imperial head diplomat and ambassador, lady consort and their majesties' personal representative in foreign lands. Hanabi introduced herself with grace and respect, hiding away her personal feelings so well that none could tell. Allow me to introduce you Lord Gabriel Windrunner, Emperor's Hand and High Lord of Dundane and his wife, Lady Verisa Windrunner, Ranger General of Dundane and Lady Commander of City Guard. Said persons nodded, with Asuma not managing to hold it in him and speak up. Lord Gabriel, is that how you call yourself these days, Konohamaru? Asuma spoke out with contempt, with Kurenai already trying to stop her husband from ending this diplomatic mission before it began. Abandoning your honorable name, our clan name and even fornicating with some, inhuman here, all after running away from what has been given to you, your parents, my father, and everyone in Konoha, they would be ashamed of you. Hello to you as well, Asuma. I hear that you and Kurenai have married and are with a child now. I wish you and your child the best of blessings. Konohamaru. No, Gabriel replied politely with a strong and powerful voice, seemingly not even fazed by the insults towards him and his wife. However, Asuma, do recall that you stand on a foreign land, and you just had the gall to insult not just an honorable woman, but a decorated war hero, one of the great heroines of Empire, and my wife. Considering that you are new here, I will allow this to slide, but apologies are most certainly in order. With each word, Gabriel's voice grew in power and strength, and by the end even Minato and Jiraiya almost shook at instant fear. Asuma Sarutobi, please keep in mind, that unlike in elemental nations, Eriador is populated by more than just human race. And within Numenor Empire, insults and violence of racial and national nature are prohibited and punishable. Hanabi took word, making a point before Konoha. If the offended party wishes, you shall be incarcerated and trialed. You may be a part of diplomatic envoy, but you are neither a member of foreign government, participant in negotiations from your daimyo, nor you are a persona with special privileges, so you are granted no diplomatic immunity. Therefore once you are arrested, there will be trialed, I assure you. Asuma, please do not harden our work here and apologize. Minato commanded, with Asuma, growling, spoke up. I apologize for my earlier words, Lady Verisa. I have not assumed that there were other races, aside the human ones. Asuma grumbled out, with Verisa accepting it. I accept your apologies on my behalf, Asuma Sarutobi, but I would watch your mouth, if I were you. You will find that emperor and empire as a whole holds no kindness towards, narrow-minded and ill-mouthed. Verisa said in an insulted and cold manner. Should I find you insulting my husband one more time, guards and shackles shall become the least of your concerns. And for your information, insulting hand of the emperor is equal to insulting emperor himself. Asuma paled a little bit, as did the others at this one, while guardsmen were seemingly on the ready to apprehend them all. Now, Verisa, no need to scare away our guests. There'll be plenty of time and more appropriate places for that soon enough. Gabriel chuckled, before he spoke up in an official tone. Our emperor and empress are glad that you have arrived safely and hope that you are ready to present your propositions and officially introduce yourselves before them in the court. Me, Lady Hanabi and my dear wife shall escort to the palace and throne room, if you are prepared. Yes, that would be lovely. Minato agreed with the others, as they began to move towards the palace. I must admit, Konohamaru, you have grown into a very fine man. From the looks at you, it is almost impossible to see a once young brash child that used to challenge Hiruzen on daily occasion for the Hokage's hat. Koharu said with a small smile, with Verisa glaring a little at her. It is a shame that you others have dishonored yourselves and abandoned your true home and duties before Konoha. Your grandfather would be greatly ashamed of you right now, she said with admonishment, with Gabriel not even budging at this one. Counselor Koharu, I believe that we are long past the point of nitpicking and nostalgia guilt. And for your general information, I go by Gabriel now, not Konohamaru, a name bestowed upon me and by High Bishop after I had converted into Light's Fate, and a name I am proud of. Gabriel reminded them all. My past name and previous deeds have remained in the East, whereas here I have made myself my own name and fame. And considering the fact that Hand of the Emperor and High Lord of Dundane are a higher in hierarchy, when compared to Hokage, I believe I have surpassed general assumptions and expectations of my persona. And what do these two titles mean, Windrunner or whatever you call yourself? Sasuke asked arrogantly, earning a glare from Verisa. And does this elf wife of yours know that there are finer men from East, when compared to you? Like me, an Uchiha elite. That earned an approving look from Sakura and a glare from Narumi. I have seen a lot of men, most of them much like you, boy, and I found them wanting and pathetic. Verisa couldn't hide a smirk at a look of insult upon Sasuke. As for my husband, I found Gabriel everything that a woman could ask of a husband and then some more to add up, the best of among the best for me in East, West, North and South. Verisa, you make me blush. Gabriel chuckled at this one. And as for the titles, High Lord is a noble title of a sovereign that controls a geographically and historically formed land, a small kingdom if you may. Dundane in one such kingdom, one of oldest and larger ones, bordering High Elves, kingdom. Your best counterpart to it will be a daimyo of a minor country, like a daimyo of Waver T. And as for Hand of the Emperor, it is a second to Emperor S title, his closest advisor, minister and so forth. You could compare to a title of Shogun of Daimyo, only with administrative, political, economic and military spheres of business included in. So, as you can see, in terms of status, Sasuke, I currently appear to be standing quite a bit higher than you and your Lord Hokage. Lady Hanabi here also is in a similar position as I am, though her holdings and title differ from mine. Hey, Hanabi, so I've heard about your big sis's death. A real shame, if you ask me, she was a rare beauty. Kiba decided to try his chance with Hanabi now, completely forgetting of tact and etiquette. Listen, why don't you show me and others around later on? I could tell you of the adventures of me and Hinata, plus we could. Kiba Inuzuka, in case you have forgotten, or simply did not take notice of, I am a married lady of noble position, tasked with many responsibilities and duties of great importance and urgency to the empire and crown. I have neither time, nor desire to forsake my vows to my husband and pursue any relations, romantic or friendly, with a person such as yourself. Hanabi said in a strong, diplomatic, yet completely harsh and powerful tone. If you wish to explore the city, I am sure you and others will be able to find a guide. And as for my sister and her death, address her name in my presence without respect next time, and you will find yourself in not so comfortable position and place, alongside your dog. Oh, come on Hana-chan, I was just trying to be friends with you and Kiba, shut your mouth already. It is enough you have the gall to speak so incorrectly to a lady, but also to be informal and so unofficial with her is an insult to her and you, so better keep quiet. Kurenai shut her former student, with Kiba mumbling something about playing hard to get. Lady Hanabi, what my ill-mannered student meant is that we offer you our condolences and sympathies, concerning the fate of your older sister. We heard she was a great woman and what befell her was atrocious and inhumane. I personally sorry for what had happened to her as well. She was like a little sister to me. Kurenai spoke in a diplomatic way, with Hanabi responding. Thank you for your words, Kurenai. My sister always spoke only the best of you as well, and even here, she continued to follow your example, solving matters in less violent and more humane manner, as you've taught her. Hanabi said to Kurenai in a softer way. I am yet to match her in art of diplomacy, but I believe that her spirit is still with us, and protects me and our husband. I always thought that your sister was crushing on that idiot Naruto, practically being in love with him, but not to same extent as I and Sasuke-kun. Sakura said without any tact, getting glared by Verisa, only with far more hatred in it. Did that dumb fool run off for someone better, leaving her for this emperor guy or something? Though, with the way she dressed and how fat she was, only someone who simply pitied her would even hold her hand and. Lord Hokage, if you do not mind, please gag this woman before I send an arrow through her skull for these words. Verisa couldn't take someone insulting either Hinata or Naruto, as she stopped and turned towards Sakura, with Gabriel also looking stressed. I have seen harpies with more compassion, and those creatures are among the foulest I had seen. You say another word about Hinata, Naruto or about their relations, and I'll personally throw you in dungeons, but not before silencing you for life. Wah! Do you even know who I am, you pointy-eared? Suddenly Hanabi raised her hand, waved it, as a white-blue glow escaped it, and Sakura suddenly became silenced, unable to say a word or anything, with the entire Konoha's procession shocked at what had happened. Thank you, Hanabi. Another word from her, and this would be the shortest diplomatic mission in history. Verisa thanked her friend, while Jiraiya voiced everyone's question. What was that? Some kind of handless jutsu, or a fuinjutsu, but I didn't feel any chakra flowing here. Jiraiya spoke up, with Hanabi speaking up. What you have witnessed is what people of Numenor refer to as magic, an arcane magic to be more precise. I have a certain degree of mastery over magical arts, so I am capable of manipulating it into spells, conjurations and other forms. Hanabi informed them all. A silencing spell shall keep Sakura quiet for as long as I wish. Unlike in elemental nations, Eriador and its inhabitants possess a greater variety in sources of power, with chakra and senjutsu being only two of them here. Such arts are, however, highly protected and prohibited from learning by their respective mentors and trainers by foreigners that do not possess emperors and empress allowance for this. I believe it is understandable that my lieges would not want to destabilize political world through carelessness and cause international conflicts and wars. So do not expect to be allowed to learn anything of magic and its variations, as well as other sources of power. And I warn you, theft of material concerning those subjects, unsanctioned training in those arts by foreigners and other transgressions of similar character are punishable by death. This goes for you especially, Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha. Gabriel looked at an insulted man and angered Uchiha. Your reputation and the fact of you possessing Sharingan are well known here, so watch your step. Unlike Konoha and Hai no Kuni, law and judgment affect all without exceptions, elites are not. The group had reached the palace's gates, with them opening up and letting them go further by a grand hall, until they reached the throne room. The throne room was every bit as great as it could have been, with high ceiling, large open area with tables, seats, chairs and pillars, on which hung the banners of the empire's subjects and domains, as well as empire's sigil, a golden lion's head on a blue field. The hall was filled with lords, ladies, elves, dwarves and even some orcs, who drew most of the attention from Konoha, with their green and dark brown skins, astonishingly strong builds, great heights and barbarian-like appearances. They reminded them of legends of Oni, only now they were made flesh. Not locking eyes on them for too long, Konoha proceeded ahead towards the two thrones, one white and made in fashion of lions and the other black and made in fashion of dragons, elevated by 10 steps above the floor level, with the black one being already occupied. In it sat a young, very beautiful black-haired woman, with long hair, with golden eyes, pointy ears much like Verisa. She wore black and gold dress, reaching to her ankles, tightly hugging her superb waist, large bust and most impressive figurine. She had an aura and looks of regality, a woman of truest power in every sense. Near her stood a young attractive woman with brown hair, made into a braid behind, dressed in a black and golden Chinese-style dress, with armored gloves and bracelets, standing near the empress and ready to strike if needed. It was clearly Tenten, but now she was grown and very different. The elevated thrones and podium on which they stood was also surrounded by 11 men and women, all differing, yet powerful in each and every one of them, with weapons and armors of their own choosing. Humans, elves high and night, dwarf and even an orc among them, men and women, hiding away their faces and not. It was clearly the Imperial Royal Guard, which now separated the podium from 3 Easterners, ambassadors that were in talks with the Empress. Minato and others recognized them as ambassadors of Kumo, Iwa and Odo, with Kabuto Yakushi representing Odo here. Your Excellencies, it pleases me and my husband to know that your respective nations are recovering from the devastating effects of plagues and famine. Empress addressed the ambassadors. People of Numenor have heard of the blight that befell your lands, and of countless lives lost. I hope that our assistance in combating the aftermath of this horror has been successful and that soon your countries shall thrive and prosper in peace and stability. Your Imperial Majesty, no words can express how much Kumo and Iwa appreciate the kindness and help you and Emperor have given us. Your humanitarian help, grain, food, medicaments and resources have saved our countries from another deadly winter. Our daimyos have instructed me to offer you his sincerest gratitude and sends you and your husband this gift. Ambassador from Kumo motioned his men to bring forth 4 crates, which were filled with silver and platinum ingots. Our countries are mountainous and are rich in ores, but poorer in plains and fertile lands, so fields with grain and forests with wood worth more than these ingots of silver and platinum. We offer them as our sign of gratitude and to demonstrate that your kindness and gifts have not been forgotten and exploited for nothing. We thank you for such generous gift and accept it. Empress smiled to them, as her servants took the crates away. My husband and I share a vision, that in peace, we must extend our hand to help out those that have found themselves in despair and show them that no hope is lost. Great and kind words, Your Imperial Majesty. It is a shame that your example is not followed by some other, more aggressive and insensitive countries. Kabuto and other ambassadors already knew that Konoha's delegation was present. My Lord Daimyo and Lord Orochimaru send their gratitude for the help that Numenor has provided in combating famine and plagues. They hope that our gift has reached you safely and without any harm. It has, Ambassador Yakushi, and we thank you for such gift. Though Oto no Kuni is a smaller in size country, your gift shows that it is as dignified and strong as those of greater sizes. I welcome you in our capital, esteemed guests, and hope you will find your stay here comfortable and productive. The ambassadors bowed before the Empress and joined in with the mass of nobility and court, while Konoha's delegation has stepped forward, led by Hanabi, Gabriel and Verisa, who instantly bowed before their Empress. High Lord Gabriel, Lady Hanabi, Lady General Verisa, I see you bring to us the awaited guests from afar. My Empress, allow me to introduce to you the official envoy of Hai no Kuni and its members. Hanabi went on to introduce every single one of them without delay and in orderly fashion, while some of the nobles looked with contempt at Konoha, including ambassadors from other elemental nations, as Hanabi has spoken and ended. Esteemed guests of Hai no Kuni, Lord Hokage and counselors, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce you Her Imperial Majesty, Empress Semiramis, first of her name and title, Queen and aspect of Black Dragonflight, Sovereign Ruler of Second Numenor Empire, Kingdom of Quel'Thalas, Ashenvale Dominion, Confederacy of Draenor, Steelhorn Kingdom. Lady Protector of Kingdoms Dalaran, Kul Tiras, Gilneas and Westerosi Kingdoms. Milady, if we may. Lady Hanabi, High Lord and Lady Ranger Windrunner, please remain near, for I and my husband will want your counsel on this matter. Semiramis motioned them, as she looked at Minato and others of Hai no Kuni, who bowed to her, save for Menma, Sasuke, Narumi in a show of disrespect, earning glares and insulted cries from the court. I was not aware that you have arrived with other sovereigns, for I cannot think of any other reason why would your fellow companions not follow etiquette, Lord Hokage. Menma, Sasuke, Narumi, bow before her, now. Minato ordered them, and they reluctantly did so before he spoke in an official and diplomatic way. Forgive us, Your Imperial Majesty, they were simply too dazed by your appearance and the aura of power you possess. You have my sincerest apologies, as their father and a father-in-law of Sasuke Uchiha, and as their Hokage. I have heard of Clan Uchiha of the East, and of Sasuke Uchiha in particular from my closest friends and advisors. Empress saw how Sasuke rose up arrogantly, smirking at her, to which Empress simply scoffed at. Apparently, the stories I have heard do bear truth, for it is said that Clan Uchiha of the East has succumbed to just one, having been exterminated for their misdeed and arrogance. You are wrong. My clan was betrayed by my own brother, Itachi Uchiha, whom I shall hunt down and kill in order to avenge my fallen clan, for only an Uchiha can best another one of his blood. Sasuke arrogantly stated, and I have heard, that you harbor within your realm criminals and exiles of my clan, who cowardly left their rightful place and ran away. I demand that you turn them into me, Empress Semiramis, for I am true Uchiha and someone who is far more worthy of both leading them, and your empire with you. Sasuke smirked, as an echoing shocked gasp from ladies was heard, as well as cries of anger and fury from others, but a single raised palm from Semiramis was enough to silence all. I see that you are fond of bad jests, Sasuke Uchiha. I hope that you improve your sense of humor, for if such declaration repeats itself, I shall see to it that your shoulders become lighter, with the removal of your head. Inhabitants of Eriador and Numenor Empire in particular are not fond of foul and bad-tasted jokes, unlike in Hai no Kuni, apparently. Semiramis said in a strong fashion, as Sasuke simply scoffed at it. Now then, Lord Hokage, to what do we owe yours and your entourage's presence? Your Imperial Majesty, as you may vey already heard, Land of Fire is currently the strongest elemental nation, with many allies and two major nations as our closest partners. One of Fire Daimyo's official representatives spoken up to her. Our land is vast and plentiful. Our people are rich and prosperous, with our merchants being only rivaled by your Phoenix Trading Company. An official alliance with our nation would most certainly benefit to you and your empire, for it stands as the most powerful country and domain in the East. A country with puppets for allies, warmongers for rulers and thieves for people. Ambassador from Iowa spoke up, drawing attention of Fire delegation and Konoha's shinobi. Your Imperial Majesty, I believe you and your esteemed husband are well aware that Hi-no Kuni and its shinobi hidden village, Konoha, have been putting to the sword and dagger all those that have defied them and dared to break the treaties with them. For that, Konoha simply invaded them, ousting rightful governments and daimyos, all but annexing the lands and assuming control of countries and their peoples. Wind and Water are two such prime examples, with their daimyos being literal family of fire daimyo, while Suna and Kiri are now simply training camps for pro-Konoha shinobi, and not to mention just how taxing and cruel Konoha treats its allies. Especially Land of Wind, or as some already say in the East, Land of Bones, for it's all but deserted now, with only corpses of starved and killed littering the desert. And now, it seeks to expand throughout our respective lands and exploit its resources. Your Imperial Majesty, I urge you not to give in to their offerings and send them out of here. Perhaps, Ambassador of Iowa would prefer to reconsider his words, for it seems like you are misspelling the truth for lies. Maybe you require a visit back in your homeland, so as to refresh your head, before he is taken out by a foreign illness and homesickness. Danzo spoke up in his usual manner, with Ambassador of Iowa literally fuming with anger. Why your Imperial Majesty, this man, no, this war hawk is a known war criminal, monger for power and threat to peace and stability. I plead to you to shackle him up and throw him into the dungeons for what he has committed and is to prevent any further crimes done by him. Ambassador of Iowa asked of the Empress. Ambassador Lao, your opinion on the matter has been heard and will be taken into consideration, but I will not allow your proposal to happen. Semiramis replied to him respectfully, before turning her gaze to the delegation. However, I will not allow guests in my empire to insult and threaten in any manner official representatives of other countries. Danzo Shimura, I believe. Your reputation is also well known in my empire, as well as your infamy of a warmonger. Official ambassador of Fire Daimyo or not, should there be found evidence of your illegal activity within our realm or any further acts such as these, you will answer for them with your life. Semiramis did not wait for his reply, before continuing on. Lord Hokage, counselors, ambassadors of Hi-no Kuni, the words surrounding your nation and the statuses of its allies and comrades in arms have long reached our court and the ears of me and my husband. And we are most distressed and concerned with the actions of your shinobi village in particular, with one matter especially being a cause of great worry. I believe you remember the matter concerning one known as Naruto Uzumaki, Lord Hokage, as well as how it was handled. Your Imperial Majesty, I can see how some of the actions of my village have distressed you, but allow me to assure you that, Minato had tried to talk his way out of this one, but then suddenly the doors of the throne room opened up, with the announcer speaking up. Announcing, His Imperial Majesty. All of court and royal guards had bowed their heads in respect and honor, as the heavy footsteps stepped through the throne hall. Konoha's delegation decided to test their luck and looked towards the emperor, and instantly froze in place, as cold shock came upon them like a hammer. Through the room stepped a tall, handsome young man, dressed in blue-plated armor with chain mail in between the parts, gilded with gold, with lions as his shoulder plates, a strange two-bladed sword, with one blade being shorter than the other and both held by a glowing golden start built in just out of guard, and a queer handle resting on his hip. The man was tall, masculine and strong-looking, with long golden hair made into a ponytail behind, sky-blue eyes, and a handsome strong face, one that looked like a mirror image of Minato Namikaze, only stronger, more regal and powerful. He exuded an aura of might, dignity, power and absolute obedience and respect for his authority. As he walked past the delegation, he spared a little glance at them all, letting smallest of satisfied smirks appear on his face. Minato and Kushina looked in absolute shock at the man, while Kakashi and Jiraiya refused to believe what they saw, along with many others. Sasuke, Kiba, Sakura, Narumi and Menma were seething with anger, jealousy and envy, as they could not comprehend and believe that this man, this loser, in their eyes, was now the most powerful man in the world. Counselors were shaking in fear and anger at this man, including Danzo, while the rest Konoha's shinobi and daimyo ambassadors chose to be silent and shocked to the core. Gabriel gave only a short bow to him, with Hanabi following the suit, as Emperor's personal bodyguard Neji Hyuga took his post near his liege, who kissed the hand of his wife. "Milady, I hope the court has not tired you while I was away." The Emperor spoke to her softly and caringly, with Semiramis responding in kind. "Not at all, my love, but it warms my heart and soul for you to stand by me." Semiramis smiled to him, as the two to their respective seats. "As you can see, we have the most awaited of guests attending, my love." "Indeed, milady, I personally have been waiting a long time to meet them, face to face." Emperor smiled a little, as he turned to Hanabi. "Hanabi, if you may do the honors." "With pleasure, Your Imperial Majesty." Hanabi didn't hide his smile at this one, as she turned to the delegation and announced her husband and liege. "Esteemed guests from Hai no Kuni, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Naruto Pendragon, first of his name and title. Sovereign ruler of Second Numenor Empire, Kingdom of Quell-Thalas, Ashenvale Dominion, Confederacy of Draenor and Steelhorn Kingdom. Lord Protector of Kingdoms of Cool Tiras, Gilneas, Dalaran and Westerosi Kingdoms. High Lord Paladin of Order of Argent Hand. Defender of Faiths and Magi and the Lion of the West." Hanabi ended with a smile, as Naruto spoke up. "Welcome, Lord Fourth Hokage, and his entourage." Naruto greeted them with a smile on his face, but with dread filling their hearts. "It has been a very long time, hasn't it, dear father?"